Hello and welcome everyone to the Bundesliga show, the Thursday night edition. And as you can see, Peter's come all kitted out in his Kaiserslautern gear. Peter, how does it feel to be a semi-finalist?
You know, as a Wigan fan, full well how it feels to be a semi-finalist. It is the most glorious feeling in the world. First time in a decade that Kaiserslautern have made the DFB Pokal semi-finals. Wonderful match there at the Olympiastadion there Wednesday night. Hopefully everybody had a chance to get a look at it. One feels for the Hertha Ultras too, because they had heart and soul as well. But there can be only one, as they say. In the
Mit Herz und Seele, as they say.
Mit Herz
yeah,
und Seele.
Definitely. I mean, it was an amazing match, wasn't it? I mean, congratulations. I pretty much text you straight away because I know how it feels when your team gets to that level. There's no better feeling, literally. And obviously, basically, just remember, guys, anyone checking into the show to don't forget that we are a podcast as well. So don't forget to leave a rating and review on our podcast. And also don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our work on YouTube as well. Don't forget that myself and Peter, we've been busy over the last week as well. We've already released the Augsburg Bayern Munich vlog as well. So don't forget to check that out. I'll put a link to that in the description for this particular show. And yeah, hi to Erin as well. Obviously we met as well over the weekend, so yeah, good to see you checking in as well. Anyone else listening, just kind of give us your predictions as well for this week, because that's going to be the main focus of the show. But just before we get started on that, I'm going to throw it over to Peter, because I know he's been busy today. He's already written 35 articles or so on the transfer deadline day. So for those of you that didn't know, the transfer deadline slammed shut at 6 p.m. German time this afternoon. So Peter, I mean, what can you tell us? What big moves have gone through today and over the last couple of days since we last checked in?
Well, quite a bit. Many of them may only be of interest to the super nerdy Bundesliga fanatics, but we got a lot of surprises, including, of course, the biggest one is that Hugo Ekitike will be striking for Eintracht Frankfurt. That was the last deal that Frankfurt managed to get through. The French PSG striker that they had been trying to get, replacing Brando Kolo Muani, but the deal fell apart at the end of September. Frankfurt, as everyone knows, thanks to the Kolo Muani deal, have a lot of money to flash around. This was one of the most expensive loan arrangements I think I've ever reported on in all my 20 years of covering football. I believe they a $4 million loan fee, some sources are reporting, to get him there. And there is a obligatory purchase option, which can send the entire package up to about 30 million euros. So that, of course, was a big deal. Bayern, they have confirmed the signing of Sacha Boey. That is the right back that they have been looking for. And they also brought Brian Zaragoza, the Spanish winger, who they had paid 12 billion to FC Granada for to get in the summer. They brought him in early to compensate for Kingsley Coman's injuries. Injury, I should say. So those are, of course, the big deals involving what I suppose you could say are the big clubs. A very, very happy birthday to Rory. He's not with us tonight because he's commemorating his special day. But bad news for Stuttgart in the sense that Dan Axel Zagadou has suffered a season-ending ACL tear. And we were waiting to see if perhaps Stuttgart would act on the market to get a replacement. They decided not to. But huge deal, pretty big deal, I would say, bringing in ex-Borussia Dortmund midfielder Mahmoud Dahoud in earlier today. That was quite an interesting deal. He's only been in the aisle there for 6 months, and now he's back in Germany, hoping to resurrect his career. On the topic of players looking to resurrect their careers, how about Nadim Amiri going to Mainz? Mainz trying to get out of the relegation race. So they've signed Jessic and Gamkam and Nadim Amiri. Good luck with that. Probably the silliest deal that I've seen is the fact that, well, Kevin Behrens moved from FC Union Berlin to Wolfsburg. And interestingly enough, this was the first time in his life that somebody actually paid money for Kevin Behrens. He's moved to 9 different clubs, but he's always moved on free transfers. So Wolfsburg are hoping to replicate the success they had 2 years ago when they applied Max Kruse over from 1. FC Union Berlin. Not quite sure if that's going to work. And another funny transfer that came down at the near the deadline: Sebastian Polter is back in the Bundesliga now with his 9th club, signed on loan from Schalke with a €500,000 purchase option. I didn't even know you could do a €500,000 purchase option, but apparently that is what Sebastian Polter is worth. I've talked for a little while yet. Forgive me, a lot of coffee today. Mark, what about some of the deals that you found interesting that you would like to talk about before we get into the predictions?
Yeah, I think the one that I really wanted to mention was one you've already covered. It was the Kevin Behrens. I mean, from both sides. I mean, from Wolfsburg's perspective, I mean, what do they expect him to add really in that one? Because he's not had the best season. I think he got a hat trick on the opening day, and he's only scored 1 goal since then. So, I mean, I hope his bike is included in that 3 million transfer as well, because he's a man who's not shy of a good cycle around. But I'm not sure he's going to have as many nice sights to see in Wolfsburg as what he could see in Berlin. But yeah, I mean, that's one thing. But I mean, as for FC Union Berlin, I just think they've had a terrible window, to be honest, in my opinion. I just think, they've lost 3 strikers and they weren't scoring goals anyway. And as far as I can see, they've not really brought any significant. I mean, okay, Kevin Vogt is a decent, solid signing in defense, but
they have signed 2 new strikers in Chris Bedia, the Ivorian from Servette, and also Jorbe Vertessen, the Belgian.
It's risky though. I would say it's a little bit risky because, I mean, Vertessen maybe seems a little bit more promising, but I mean, the guy from Servette, I mean, it's a much lower level of football in general. And I just feel as though, the loss of Fofana, the loss of Behrens and Becker as well could be a blow to Union. And there's a lot of reliance on those 2 aforementioned strikers to really hit the ground running. Otherwise, they're going to be in big trouble because they've not been scoring goals all season, basically, Union Berlin. And it is a bit of a worry for them and their fans. Although at least a bit of ambition has been shown to spend 5 million on Vertessen, because by Union standards, that's a lot of money. I think, obviously, in recent days, obviously, the signing of Borja Iglesias, I know you mentioned it a little bit on the pod on Monday, but I mean, that could be an important signing to cover for Schick, because we know that Schick is injury prone as well. And he's not had a good season this year, but in general, his stats are quite promising. I can't profess to having seen him that often live because I don't really watch La Liga. But I mean, he is a player that comes with caliber, and it's going to be interesting to see him play. Be also interesting to see if he's going to start on Saturday as well, because I mean, Schick has not exactly covered himself in glory the last 2-3 games. So you never know. We could see a shock start there for Leverkusen. But yeah, in general, I would say overall probably quite a quiet window, really, in general. There's not been like any kind of major moves. Also in the Premier League too. I mean, that's been the kind of big story. Basically, the story has been that there's been no moves pretty much in the Premier League, which by English standards is unheard of pretty much. But also in the Bundesrepublik, probably the biggest money move that we've not mentioned was obviously Elmas has gone to RB Leipzig. I mean, he is a player that comes with caliber as well, the central midfielder. We've not really seen him that much because he signed very early on in the window. We've seen a couple of cameo appearances from him so far, but he's a player that I expect to come into the team more and more as the season goes on. But aside from that, and the ones you've already mentioned, Peter, I don't think there's been that many kind of major moves. Obviously, a few niche moves: Polter, Behrens, and Gankam as well. I mean, and Gankam I think he's trying to go for the record of being like the cult hero at every club he plays for, pretty much, because the guy is just rated by everyone, but he just doesn't score goals, does he? That's the problem. So, like, maybe Mainz is the club for him to finally change his fortunes, but we'll see about that one, guys. Anyway. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything to do with the transfer window, which closed this evening. So, yeah, let's move on to the predictions for week 20. So, I mean, it's going to be a big week ahead, and there's so many fascinating matches, and no more than the Friday evening match between Heidenheim and Borussia Dortmund. So, I mean, this is going to be a really interesting game because in the first match between these 2 teams, it finishes a 2-2 draw, which was a really entertaining game. And for me, that was the first time we saw Heidenheim show up in the season in the previous game. I felt as though that was the time when you saw that game, you thought, Heidenheim could do something this season. And obviously they've gone on to do really, really well in their maiden season in the Bundesliga. And, Dortmund on the back of 3 straight wins, but I don't feel as though they've been scintillating. I watched the game last week, just after Peter left, actually, against Bochum, and I was a little bit underwhelmed by them at times, although Füllkrug did get a hat-trick, although 2 of them were penalties. I mean, I actually think there'll be goals in this one, but I was actually tempted to go for a Heidenheim shot win under the lights, but I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I just feel as though Dortmund are not ready to win this kind of fixture yet, which is a little bit worrying for Terzic and his men. What do you think, Peter?
I actually think that's an excellent tip. That is the exact scoreline that we had in the Hinrunde, and that was also a Friday night match. That was the weekend that you and I went to go see Kaiserslautern, as a matter of fact. So I'm watching that. And that was also at the end of the September transfer deadline. It was another busy time. I do have probably a little bit more respect for Dortmund at this stage than you do. I'll be obviously, we've been very busy this week, so my tactics column is not going to come out until tomorrow. But in it, I have some very, very interesting things that are going on with Dortmund that we've been seeing, particularly how they're moving Maatsen into midfield. Now, Dortmund have some serious injury concerns. We believe that Gregor Kobel, Julian Brandt, Marco Reus, and now Jadon Sancho are probably still going to be out for this fixture. So the tactical team there at Dortmund, which is, I think, a good tactical team with Edin Terzic, in addition to Nuri Sahin and Sven Bender. I think that they're going to have a good match plan and they'll come up with it. But right now, Heidenheim are riding high with confidence. It's getting to the point now where they can probably secure safety in another season of Bundesliga football relatively early. And I think a 2-2 draw is an excellent tip. And I will great minds think alike in that respect.
Yeah. Every time I hear that name, Sven Bender, it always gets me laughing a little bit. I remember in the days when we used to say the Bender brothers as well, because it was Lars and Sven. Yeah. And it was always like a bit of a kind of comedy thing in the UK, that the Bender brothers. Yeah. But it is a great name, that one. Yeah. So moving on to Saturday games, it's obviously the record mice against their bogey team, as I kind of pitched it, Borussia Mönchengladbach. A team that Bayern have not enjoyed facing at all in the last 7-8 years, really. Although they did get a win in the Borussia Park earlier in the season, but that was at a time when Gladbach hadn't really shown themselves in the season by that point. And I feel as though, that they're a little bit better prepared going into this game. I mean, obviously last week they went to Leverkusen, so they're well drilled in, not having very much possession in the game. So that could potentially make them even more dangerous opponents for Bayern this time. Obviously we saw Bayern live last week, didn't we, Peter? And while they're very good in parts, they've still got that quality and that individual brilliance. That there are moments you think it's just not really firing for them, and they don't see games out very easily. And, from 3-1 up last week, they could easily have ended up drawing with the 2 penalties. So I feel as though Gladbach are a more experienced side and, they've got a lot of quality in there. And I'm going to go for another draw here, actually. I've got a feeling we're going to see Bayern drop points. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, more based on the fact that, Bayern are just not really, for me, they're not firing on all cylinders and they're making too many defensive errors at the minute. And they're not putting in complete 90-minute performances. Do you agree, Peter, or are you going to go for you have a different view on this one?
I think that's an interesting perspective. I think that's I can see. I mean, when we saw Bayern live, yes, they had their issues, they had their problems. Defending was an issue. I'm very, very fond of the work that Mathis Tel has been putting on in the left, substitute appearances, and also in place of the injured Kingsley Coman, who was had to be helped off in the 26th minute against Augsburg. So I think Tell is doing very well offensively, but you could tell that Tell improvised was having issues shutting down his side and putting in the defensive work. Fair enough, he is a natural striker after all. I think that we probably still see Guerrero start on the right again. I think he's going to keep that back four together. It's probably too early to integrate any of the new signings into the starting 11. which could be fine because I think that Guerrero actually played very well on the right, surprisingly and shockingly so, I have to say. It's important to keep in mind that the two penalties that we saw from Bayern last week came from some frustrated old fogies in Manuel Neuer and Thomas Müller, who conceded the two penalties late. I think the young guys in Bayern will be able to step up and make this happen. Musiala, Davies, who got a goal last week and will probably start on the left again, and Pavlovic, who also got a goal, although he had a lot of help in getting that goal. I will go for a 2-1 Bayern win. Gladbach really, really defended well last week. We were talking about this on the Monday pod. For Gladbach to defend that well 2 weeks in a row, I don't know.
Well, they might need Nicolas to be in similar kind of form to what he was last week as well. But yeah, as I say, I think the fact they're so well drilled from that game, that could work in their favour in a way for me. But yeah, I think it's going to be a tight game either way, that one. Yeah. Then a really interesting game as well, a Baden-Württemberg derby. It seems like we have one of them every week these days, doesn't it? Like Barvu is getting big in the Bundesliga these days. Forget Nordrhein-Westfalen. Barvu is the new place where the Bundesliga is at. But yeah, this is a game between the two teams from the southwest. There, Peter's got his Baden flag as well. I like it. Yeah. But yeah, it is another Barvu derby, and this time two traditional clubs not involving Hoffenheim as well. So a lot of people will be happy about that. But this is a game which has really interested me in recent seasons, actually. I think there's been a lot of kind of classic encounters between these two sides. And actually last season, this match was decided by 2 penalties for Freiburg, and it was actually Zagadou that gave them both away too. And ironically, we just found out today that he's done for the season as well, unfortunately, as he's had a really good season. But I think in general, Stuttgart, they were superb last week. I just thought some of the, Undav has found his shooting boots again. Furyk was back to his best from the Hinrunde. Obviously, the fact that Guirassy is still at the AFCON as well as Guinea are into the last stage, so they could potentially miss him for another 2 to 3 games, which is frustrating on their part. But I'm sure they'll be happy for him that he's doing well at the AFCON. As for Freiburg, their season's plodding along nicely, I would say. I thought they were well beaten really last week against an on-form Bremen side. Grifo seems back to his best. So, there's so many good players in that team. Röhl is just an amazing player too. He's been one of the breakthrough of the season. I've just got a feeling that the away side are going to do the business here, actually. I just feel as though Stuttgart are in slightly better form. The way that team is working, all the good about Stuttgart came out last week, basically, against Leipzig. And I just thought they were brilliant. And Undav, he's a confidence player. He's going to have got his confidence back, and I can see him getting amongst the goals. I'm going to go for a 2-1 away win here, which would be a big step towards Stuttgart getting Champions League football. What do you think, Peter?
I agree. I think that Freiburg's defeat away at Bremen last week was one of the more surprising results for me because I expected a lot more from them. But when it came down to it, there were just too many young players in the wrong positions. Makengo at left back, he conceded a penalty. Weishaupt didn't do very well on his unnatural right-hand side. Röhl had a very quiet game. Sedilia made many defensive errors in his center back position. That's not his natural position. We should probably mention that our mutual friend Attila Scholai had a disastrous debut. And
Deja vu.
Yeah, right. So we probably now we understand a little bit better why Pellegrino Matarazzo wasn't interested in playing him at Hoffenheim. Freiburg, unfortunately, this has the feel of it's time for them to start cooling down. I think that Streich wanted some reinforcements in the winter. He didn't really get the ones that he needed, and this is just a rebuilding year for Freiburg. They're gonna fold up in sleepy Breisgauer style, and Stuttgart are in excellent form. Führich, it was contract extension today amid all of the transfer talk. They're really doing a great job of getting these players tied down. And the Zagadou situation, it's easily remedied. All you have to do is move Maximilian Mittelstadt down there as the left back in the back four, and Joshua Wagnermann and Waldemar Anton and Hualt, who has been really good lately. They can serve in the back four. Everything should be okay. I think Atakan Karatsor is suspended on yellows, is he? Or no, he's back this week. So yes, I'm going to go for a 2-0 Stuttgart win. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and tip them for a more convincing 3 points.
Yeah, and then a really interesting match as well. This is one that really got me thinking. Mainz against Werder Bremen. I mean, what can you say about Mainz? I mean, me and Peter watched the game actually before our double header on Friday night, and I was just dismayed by them at times, to be honest. I mean, they don't seem to get shots on target. You know, obviously they went with Johnny Siwo as well. Johnny Burkhardt and Johnny Siwo up top last week, and it just didn't work. I mean, Peter, you had a bit of a go at me for saying that Johnny Burkhardt's finished, but I mean, he didn't play particularly well. Nobody wants him to be finished, but since he came back, he's just not looked the same player. It has been 7-8 games now that he's been in and around the team, and I believe that he needs a goal, even if it's just a penalty or something. He needs a way of getting back amongst the scoring, and maybe he'll kick something on. But I mean, obviously, I would imagine Amiri will probably start because, you know, we laugh about him, but he is a player that was rated at one time, you know, and he actually, ironically, he did start for Leverkusen last week as well, which is quite crazy, really, in many ways, but he did get a run out for that Leverkusen side. So he is a player that can make things happen if he feels loved, if he gets attention. He's that kind of player that needs all that if he's going to do well. I mean, and Gankam, the less said, the better, in my view. But yeah, it will be interesting to see if the two new signings get any play. Werder Bremen on the other side, I mean, they're starting to have a real good season now. You know, Olive Werner has kind of ridden the storm, and he's now 6 games unbeaten, which is really impressive, actually. And, you know, the last 2 games, wins over Bayern Munich and Freiburg, and, you know, and Jinmar is one of the kind of breakouts of this Rückrunde so far. He's been superb in every game in the Rückrunde so far. I feel as though they're starting to defend better as well. You know, the likes of Stark and Velkovic as well is coming a lot better in there now. And this looks a team that, and to be honest, I actually criticised him early on after he started to play more often. Zetterer has actually given a bit more stability towards that defence as well. So this is a real hard one to predict. Obviously, Bremen are by far more the on-form roster, but you know, I've got a funny feeling that Mainz are going to turn it on. I still think Mainz are going to stay up. I really do believe that Mainz will stay up, but they've got to find a win from somewhere. And for me, this could be the game they do it as underdogs. I'm going to go for a 2-1 home win. Peter?
That's an interesting tip. I mean, I was really, really impressed by what I saw from Bremen last week. Jinma had some help on his goal, but he got several very good chances in there. So he seems to be melding with Marvin Duksch. You know, and it's interesting, they won without Mitchell Weiser as well, who had to withdraw on short notice. Olivier Deman was actually pretty much rubbish filling in for Mitchell Weiser, but I believe that Weiser will be back. Sin Lennon is clicking, this midfielder that they got during the September transfer window. When it comes to Mainz, I think you know, Jurgen, I'm covering the AFC Continental Championship. Jurgen Klinsmann is doing his best to get South Korea eliminated. But despite his best efforts, South Korea still keep going through with like these miracle last-minute goals. There was an incredible comeback in the round of 16 just the other night. I think that Mainz will. I agree with you that I don't think that they'll get relegated. I think what they really need is they need Lee Jae-sung back there as a sort of a buttressing support attacker. And if Amiri is going to start, he's going to start on that second access behind whoever they decide to deploy at striker. And he's succeeded in that position before. He's actually been a halfway decent attacking midfielder, but he hasn't played that for that role for Leverkusen in a very long time. And he hasn't played at all for Leverkusen in a very long time. So yeah, I'm thinking that Bremen are going to go ahead and take a 2-0 victory here as well. I just don't see where the goals are going to come from insofar as Mainz are concerned. I think that they will eventually tick up, but not just yet. We have to wait for Lee Jae-sung to get back from the AFC Cup. And as I said, Klinsmann is doing his best. Just absolutely horrible tactics, terrible drilling. He's being typical Jurgen Klinsmann. Good Lord, I don't know why people keep hiring him.
Well, they've got the Aussies as well, haven't they? They've got the Aussies.
They do. And our friend
Yeah.
Jackson Irvine,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Connor Metcalf, two Aussies of Scottish descent playing for FC St.
Yeah.
Pauli. So
True St. Pauli players as well. Yeah. But actually, I read that Klinsmann was getting a bit of criticism as well at one stage because he refused to live in Korea as well. Like it was kind of part of the contract that all managers of South Korea are supposed to be permanently based in the capital, Seoul. But he was, in most cases, not really based there. He was traveling here, there, and everywhere, and he got a lot of stick for that early on in his reign. But
he refused to live in Germany when he was our Bundestrainer. When he was the trainer of the German national team, he was commuting back and forth from California in the States, where his family is and his kids are. I mean, Klinsmann is effectively an American. I mean, his family is American, kids are American. He's Jurgen's a German, is a Yank for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, he's a true dual national for sure. But yeah, let's have a look at it. Another interesting game. This is one that really got me thinking. Quite a lot of interesting tactical encounters as well this weekend, and a lot of even matches, I feel. So Bochum Augsburg. I mean, Bochum are a side that they've taken 10 points from the last 4 games at home, but away from home they don't travel as well. But they've got a lot of players. Osterhager is a player that's really impressed me this season as well. I think I'm a little bit shocked. I know he was linked with a few other clubs, but I think he's one to really look out for this runner. They'll be happy they've kept hold of him as well. And I think Bochum in general, their midfield is quite strong. I love Lucia. I think he's a fantastic player as well. I just think even Kevin Stöger is still doing a job. He must be about 40 now, but yeah, he's still a quality player there. I think after he left Mainz, everyone thought he was finished, but he's had a bit of a kind of Indian summer in his career really there in Bochum, and this season he's been superb. Augsburg are another side that I feel as though there's so much potential in there, but they've just got to cut out the silly errors and probably drop Jakic as well. But I mean, they are a side. When we watched them last week, at times they look like a real good team, like Kevin and Babu. What a performance that was. Demirovic, 10 league goals as well as 5-6 assists. What a season he's having. They have a lot of good players. Dorsch obviously has missed the last few games, but he could potentially come back in the near future. Rex Bahai played well too. Was unlucky not to give them the lead early on in that game. This is a game that could go either way, but it's a game that both sides will feel as though they should be winning, I think, this match as well. Both sides will feel as though they're the better side here. And I think they might cancel each other out, but I think there will be goals in this game. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw here, actually. What do you think, Peter?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great tip. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I think that these teams will basically cancel each other out. Bochum, of course, very strong defensively. A transfer that we didn't talk about, Jess Dorup has brought Pep Biel, the versatile Spanish attacker from his time at Copenhagen, over to Augsburg. That's actually, I think, a transfer with some potential to it. You could even see him running in a 4-4-2 there with Demirovic. That's something to keep an eye out for. I'm glad you mentioned Patrick Osterhager as well. So Augsburg have had an interesting transfer window. They brought in only Jakic and Biel while shipping out 7 players. Probably the most important move they made was keeping hold of Mbabu. Incidentally, if I may plug for our vlog, and there's Paul. You could throw Paul up there. Hi, Paul. Thank you very much for doing the cover art for us on the vlog. We had a blast singing Rot-Grün Weiß there at the VWK Arena. I mean, all of a sudden you saw them play and you think to yourself, you know what, they probably can escape the relegation race this season, despite all of their issues. The issue number 1 being signing Jakic. But they are 2 good teams right now. They're teams that I think inspire a lot of confidence, and I think that they will split the difference, although I have the scoreline slightly lower. Yeah,
interesting one. So and then obviously moving on to Yeah, probably one of the games of the weekend, really. One of the games when most people will think it's going to be quite a straightforward victory for the away side, but I'm not going to say quite that everything's fallen apart for Leverkusen. It's nothing like that. But I do feel as though performances have dropped off since the Rückrunde. I mean, obviously, they managed to get probably quite lucky wins in Augsburg and Leipzig, where I didn't really feel as though they'd done enough to win either of those games, in truth. And then, obviously, last week, that was arguably the best performance of the Rückrunde, ironically. I mean, they completely dominated Gladbach. But, I mean, a mixture of good Gladbach defending and goalkeeping and bad finishing cost them 2 points. But I still feel as though it's not quite at the same level as what it was. Maybe it's just a feeling. Maybe I'm just starting to doubt them a little bit now. But it is a feeling. And I feel as though the AFCON departures and also the Boniface injury have really kind of affected them. Obviously, Palacios also was missing last week too, which was massive. He's been an absolute world beater this season. But this is a game that clearly they should be winning. They should be winning comfortably. But I've got a funny feeling that this could be a mini banana skin in a way. I don't know why. I know you like that expression, Peter. But yeah, Darmstadt, I mean... Yeah, I mean, obviously, in individual quality, there's absolutely no comparing these two teams. But I do like the signings from Darmstadt of Justvan and also of the Bochum Messi is back as well. That's one that we missed, actually. Gerrit Holtmann, I mean, what a player he is. You know, we're massive fans of him on the show as well. I mean, you know, how typical would it be of him to go and throw a dent into Leverkusen's title race? But yeah, I'm still going to go for Leverkusen to win, though, despite all that, because there's just too much quality difference. But I don't actually think it's going to be a very easy win. I'm only going to go for a 2-1 here, actually. What do you think, Peter?
I think that the Leverkusen will respond, and I think that they will sort of break free of their shackles. It was a very, very frustrating match for them last week. But I think that the system works, as evidenced by all of the stats that we referenced on Monday's program, where we had a great guest, the writer of Werkself Daily, Alex Silk. This should be a comfortable win for Leverkusen. You know, I'm glad you brought up the fact that Darmstadt have had an interesting transfer window. You know, they've done a lot with a little. They even fired their sporting director days before the transfer window started, and they've still been able to get in, you know, a couple of good signings like Justvan and Holtmann. Polter is, I don't know. Look, Polter is not even eligible to play yet because he's had hernia surgery in December. So I mean, they didn't even have a rollout for him because they didn't even have a medical. I mean, there was no medical. They knew they were getting damaged goods, and that's exactly, you know, I don't know. That was the weirdest signing of the day. Well, perhaps with the exception of, did you hear about this Norwegian kid from the Manchester United U23s? With
yeah, that was a funny one.
Yeah, okay, Isaac Hansen Aronen. Guy's got more vowels in his name than he has neck tattoos, or it's a close contest. But anyways, yeah, I don't know about the Polter signing. Darmstadt, they do have. I mean, Justvan was very good in his opening match. Not so much in the next one. And Holtmann, we only briefly saw off the bench. You know, it's possible that Torsten Kniebecknecht can get something out of this retooled roster, but for the time being, I'm going to go with a 3-0 Leverkusen win here. I think they get blanked.
Yeah. What is it about German football and these kind of cult hero, massive centre forwards? You know, Kevin Behrens, Tirode, Anderson, you know, Polter, Bulter. Like, they're all about 6'6" and just like Bundesliga clubs just love having one of them in the roster. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, like
you know, we basically produce some of the best second tier level strikers in the world. We don't have one that can lead the line for our national team, but we have legends like Sebastian, like Tirode, like Tim Kleindienst.
Yeah,
like,
Kleindienst.
Yeah, I mean, all of these. We have just the best second tier strikers in the world, but you know, when we bring them up to the national team, I don't think Kevin Behrens is getting a call up again anytime soon. I'm sorry, but I don't believe he's coming for the Euros.
Yeah. And then, yeah, okay, moving on to obviously a game between two of Germany's biggest clubs, FC Köln and Frankfurt. So yeah, I mean, this is a real interesting looking game. Obviously, Frankfurt's going quite well. I didn't think they were at the best last week against Mainz, but I think I said to you at the time, Peter, that you can't play well every game, and the games that you don't play well, you've got to find a way to win, and they did that. And the table's looking pretty for them at the minute. In sixth place, and they're not that far behind the top four either, as things stand. And this is a game that they'll look at as a must-win. Against probably the worst roster, probably on par with Darmstadt. Although with Darmstadt's signings, maybe even Köln's is now the worst roster in the Bundesliga, potentially. Although maybe that's a little bit too harsh. But yeah, this is obviously, a 2-year transfer ban. They've not been able to bring a single soul in, which is just heartbreaking, really, for a team that have struggled so much this season. And to be honest, I've got a feeling that Frankfurt are going to catch fire in this game and win very comfortably. I'm going to go for a 3-0 away win here. And Köln fans are not going to enjoy me saying that, but I feel as though this is Frankfurt's day. What do you think, Peter?
I agree. Frankfurt are going to snap back from that wretched performance that we watched last Friday night. Although it was kind of fun to watch Mario Götze score with his head. He's not a prototypical tall German at all. He's a rather diminutive man. Speaking of diminutive men, Köln have Jan Thielmann leading the line. This is the best. So yeah, I think your scoreline is quite perfect. Interesting. Yeah, that's a 4-1 or 4-0 win for me as well. And I have 3 shutouts. I have 4 shutouts here, 4 clean sheets on the board for this latest set of fixtures. But yeah, big win for the Rhein-Main Adler.
Well, let's be honest, Köln don't exactly get many, do they? I mean, even last week in that 1-1 draw against Wolfsburg, their XG was like 0.4 or something. So it's just grim times for the FC at the minute. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, and obviously it's coming up to carnival time as well, so it's going to be a bleak carnival this year in that part of the world, it seems. So yeah, and then a lot of people will call this one El Plastico as well, a match between two of the, probably the teams, in my opinion, that are have the worst fans in the Bundesliga. I'm going to be honest with you, Wolfsburg and Hoffenheim. I mean, I respect Wolfsburg for what they've done in the past and the history of the club, but just at the minute, they're not going through a great period, in my opinion. And yeah, Kovac continues to cling on to his job, but I don't know how, in truth. I just think he's been clinging on pretty much since the day he got the job, it seems, because, I mean, it's been a wretched season in many ways. Not just the results, but I think the way they played has just not been good. At least last season, there was some kind of, style of play, and there were a lot of promising breakouts like the Nemecha brothers and things. This year, aside from Vind, and to be honest, even Vind the last few weeks has been quiet. Czerny has been one player that's impressed me in the Rückrunde, but, Hoffenheim, probably another team that are a bit on the down at the minute because, I think they probably feel as though they should have won last week's Bavü derby against Heidenheim, but wasn't to be in that case. But I've got a feeling this is just going to be a kind of pretty dull 1-1 draw. This is not a game that I probably won't be tuning into this one, in truth. What do you think, Peter?
Yeah, Germans won't be turning into it either. The official El Plastico is Leipzig versus Hoffenheim. But I do maintain that the Wolfsburg Ultras, I like them. I think that they have a good sense of humor. They're okay. The Hoffenheim fan base, what can you say? It's such a young club. They just haven't had a time to build it yet. But in any event, I think that Hoffenheim will take this one. And Niko Kovac is also on his last legs. I mean, as you pointed out, Vind has really been struggling. And, they specifically said that they brought in Behrens as a help towards Vind so they can run a 3-5-2 or a 4-4-2. All of this has the stain of Niko Kovac really getting free tactical reign, which means he's going to mess it up. I think they get 1 goal, but I think that Hoffenheim does one better. Hoffenheim not necessarily been god-awful in recent weeks. The back four, I mean, Matarazzo did a back four last week. He straightened his tactics out. He put John Anthony Brooks back in the lineup. And I think that, it'll be a 2-1 win for Hoffenheim. But good God, Köln, Wolfsburg last week. I mean, that's one of the few sections of my tactics column that I've not finished yet. because I just watching it, I don't know what to say. The two teams are terrible. they're really terrible. So I don't know. I'll watch it again tomorrow morning, and hopefully I'll think of something to say.
Yeah. And then the East German derby, really, isn't it? If you can call it that in the Bundesliga. Yeah, RB Leipzig versus Union Berlin. I mean, I am interested to see what Union are going to churn out in this game because, I mean, as we say, it has been a transfer window of upheaval, to say the least. And, they've done by far the most business in and out this January transfer window. I thought last week, they did actually create chances against Darmstadt in a game that, to be honest, was a lot more open than I expected. The XG was like around about 4 for Union and about 1.5 for Darmstadt. So there should have been more goals with both teams missing chances. I mean, Union, it's hard to know where they go this season from here. I mean, it's clear that they've just got to stay up, but the style of play hasn't been good really this season. I mean, they've always been a team that have been pragmatic, basically, but it was always like in a beautiful way, if you know what I mean. Like they had their own style, that kind of very wide formation, and they used to squeeze the play wide. And but this year we've just not really seen any of that, and I'm still yet to see Bielitsa's tactics really take hold, in my view. I know he's currently serving like a 7-match touchline ban, so yeah, that's not exactly ideal, is it really? But I mean, as for Leipzig, 3 straight defeats. I can't remember the last time I saw them lose 3 straight, to be honest. They've always been a team that have been known for consistency. If they lose a game, they'll always bounce back with 2 or 3 wins straight. But, this Rückrunde has been an unmitigated disaster for them so far. 3 straight defeats against I know it's been against 3 good teams, to be fair. They played Frankfurt first, then they played Leverkusen, and then Stuttgart. But I'm actually going to go for a comfortable home win here. I simply think this is a bigger game for Leipzig. Really, they've got to win the game. I'm going to go for a 3-0 win to complete the double over their East German rivals. What do you think, Peter?
Perhaps wishful thinking, but I actually hope that we get a lot of goals in this one because we had some low-scoring affairs in the first round back from the winter pause, and also last week as well. I think that, yes, Leipzig, they have to rebound here. It's this results crisis for Leipzig. It's hard to explain. It doesn't make a lot of sense. All of the talent is there. I predicted last week that they would get in gear. I suppose they can do so this week. Better late than never. When it comes to Union, I think that they have a goal-scoring threat as well. And I don't mean Benedikt Hollerbach either. I think that Kevin Volland can round himself back into form. I want to see this kid Betty. I think he has potential. I really liked what he did in Switzerland. Of course, we said the same about Jordan when he transferred from Switzerland to Union as well. Bielika's tactics are basically the same as Urs Fischer's tactics. And he's serving a 3-match ban at the moment, which means that actually for German football, Marie-Louise Etta, you remember the female trainer?
Yeah.
She's serving as a active trainer, and she's running the press conferences and everything now. So that's worth a look. I hope the game is worth a look. I hope that we get a good one in the Sunday capper. But if not, perhaps people might be interested to tune in for Marie's press conferences because that's really interesting. It's really interesting to see a woman giving a press conference for a top flight German football side. We've never seen that before. So, and she's done a good job thus far, but this is really unprecedented. And she's there on the sidelines directing the players and everything. It's you saw that in France with Corinne Diacre once upon a time, but we've never seen it in Germany before. And I don't think you'll ever see it in England. Will they stand for it? Who knows?
You never know, yeah. But definitely, I think Germany and France are ahead of the UK on that front. Yeah. Okay, but yeah, let's have a look at the table then. So yeah, if our results are correct, well, my results are correct, then yeah, it's going to be Leverkusen remain top, and actually they expand their lead to 4 points again. So even though I don't tip a heavy win for Leverkusen, it'd be a big weekend. If that was to come to fruition. Stuttgart march on again with another big win. going clear of Dortmund as well in fourth, with Frankfurt just a few points back, just 3 points back from the top for themselves. So yeah, let's go down to the bottom, and once again, it's that bottom three still there. But if results go the way I tape, then Mainz will climb one place, I should say, above FC Köln, who incredibly are not in the bottom two as things stand. So it's not all so bad for the Kölners after all. And then, yeah, massive gap basically between, Mainz and then, okay, Union's still in there, but Bochum and Augsburg pretty comfortable in lower mid-table for me. So what about you, Peter? What have you got on your screen then?
Well, I believe we only split the difference on the big one that we split the difference on was Bayern Gladbach, and I believe that Bayern will win. So Leverkusen, Bayern, Stuttgart, and Dortmund are your top four, with Leverkusen maintaining a 2-point lead at the top. Leipzig catch up, but they are still not in the back four, or top four, I should say, after a draw with Heidenheim. Frankfurt catch up with Leipzig a little bit in 6 on 34 points. Hoffenheim sort of make sure that the gap between 6th and 7th isn't so bad with their own win. That's another one that we split the difference on. And your bottom three are Köln, Mainz, and Darmstadt. That is unchanged.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And as you say, there could potentially be a big gap if my results come between 6th and 7th. The big gap opening up there. So, yeah, that's pretty much all we got time for you today. So yeah, basically remember to subscribe, like, and comment as well. Also check out our podcast as well. We're not only a YouTube channel, we are also a podcast, don't forget that. And yeah, don't forget to follow us on Twitter as well, @OverTheBarFB and @OverTheBarExtra. And don't forget to do your homework, guys, and make sure that you check out our Augsburg versus FC Bayern Munich vlog. There will be another one coming as well. I won't spoil it for you, the game, but those of you that follow our Instagram will be aware that myself and Peter did attend another game as well over the weekend. So yeah, that vlog will be coming soon. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys. And we'll join you again on Monday to review the week's action. So see you then. Bye-bye, guys.